I think sexual assault is an issue on all campuses and colleges through the country. I wouldn't say that Rowan is any different than any other university, and I can't really give you a statistic on that, but it is a concern for all universities. And I think it's important that we get out the awareness for it to educate our constituents and the students. It's very important. Well, I've been here approximately a year and a half at Rowan, and they've had a program prior to me getting here called the RAD program, which is a great rape, aggression, defense program. And the part of the program is awareness, education. And one thing that has increased here that I've noticed through the Department of Public Safety is we are very community oriented to get out the message, to get the student body to be educated on this topic. And it's a tough topic, sexual assault. A lot of people want to shy away from it, but we're not going to shy away from it. We try to educate people on that topic so they can be aware of it. So I want to say the things that have increased has been the education, the awareness. The police department here, Division of Department of Public Safety, has increased over the last few years, where now there's 3 full-time detectives who have received training, and they're a part of committees that are dealing with that issue on campus.
The public.
We will meet with the student body. I have a relationship with the Student Government Association that we've offered to do seminars or lecture speaking for the student body. We do have the program, the RAD program, which students can sign up for, and they're trained in techniques. And you can see through the brochures, or you can see through our website exactly what that is, where they're actually putting on these physical pads and they're practicing defending themselves. Now that is a physical defense, but we also have other areas where we educate people, where we give them safety tips, such as, if you're going to drink, don't leave your drink on the bar by itself. Use common sense. So we do get out more of the message to the students. We're always available, that if anybody wants us to talk, we'll make time to do that. Continue the awareness. Work together with all the groups on campus. Student Life has a good program called the Green Dot Program, which is a reduction in violence, all violence, but it includes a sexual assault, includes domestic violence, but working together with all our constituents here on campus. And I've seen that occur, and we're improving that daily, just to say, you know what, we're working together. And I use the term, prior to coming here, I was a 30-year law enforcement official in Camden, New Jersey, and I always consider everybody my partner. And I'll use that term a lot, partners. And I look at all the partners here at Rowan University, and collectively, we can get this message out as long as we work together, and we are.
How accurate are current reports of sex crimes on campuses?
I cannot give you a definitive statistic, but I am concerned that it's not being reported like it should be. I think we still need to get the effort out there to encourage the people to say, it's not your fault, it's not an embarrassment, we need to be aware of it. First and foremost is for people to report it so they can receive some form of medical treatment. That is first and foremost. Because a lot of the victims may want to get medical treatment, but they don't want to report the crime, and it is a crime. So we encourage people to do that, and we have trained staff who work along with the Gloucester County SANE program, Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners, to collectively work together so the victim doesn't feel as much of a victim, where they can feel more open to say what happened and not be embarrassed. And that's the hardest thing to overcome, because I see a lot of victims in sex assault, not on this campus, but throughout my career. One of the things is they feel like it's their fault, especially when it deals with a date rape type situation, where it's somebody they know. And we just need to educate them and say, no, it's not your fault, you are a victim.
It's often stated that nationwide, over 90% of all college students who are sexually assaulted do not report it to any authority. Do you agree with this number?
I don't know, like I said, I don't know if I can say 90%, but I will say it is more of a percentage that I feel that are not reporting that should, and we need to combat that. And we combat that obviously through education. And we have to make them feel comfortable that when they come in here, they're not going to be assaulted again. And I'll use that and paraphrase in quotes by saying, we don't want to victimize them a second time when we're trying to interview, when they're being examined. And that's part of the reason for the nurse examiners, to help them to say, you know what, we're going to try to be as careful as possible. We're We're going to try not to make this any worse than the experience already you've gone through, and try to make them at least feel a little comfortable through public safety and all of our partners in this to make sure that they do report it.
Why do you feel like, since you said it's a traumatizing experience, why do you feel that they're not reporting it if we're only here to help them and, you know, seek the medical attention and everything? Why do you think that they're not speaking out about this?
I think they're embarrassed because anytime anybody's violated, and that's what happens, they're violated, they're embarrassed by it. And they're embarrassed by it, and some of them may feel guilty by it, guilty by being, you know, maybe I put myself in a situation I shouldn't have had. Maybe I shouldn't have had too much alcohol where I didn't understand my surroundings. And some of them feel that it's their fault. And the hardest message to get out, and I'll say it right now, it is not their fault. It is not their fault. And I think that's part of the reason where they maybe hope it goes away and they don't report it. Because they're still going to be on campus. They're still going to see maybe the perpetrator. And that's even more of a reason to report it.
Just another follow-up to that. Do you feel that most of the perpetrators would be repeat offenders? That if these girls aren't speaking out against it, that they're maybe condoning it to happen again to someone else? Can you maybe mention something about that?
I won't use the word condone, but I understand where you're coming from. I definitely look at that if it's not reported, that whoever the perpetrator, and I'm going to use this term, the sexual predator. Because I don't care if it's somebody who knows the person or it's that bad man in the bushes. Anybody who commits a sexual assault, in my opinion, is a sexual predator. And if that predator gets away with it once, I think they'll continue it. And that's why it is important to report it. Because if it happens to one person and the young lady doesn't report it, then that predator might go on to the next one. And it's important that that predator realizes that's not acceptable behavior and that really you've committed a criminal act.
What is the best way to combat rape in a college or university environment?
Best way we can do at Rowan University here is to continue our education and awareness program. Education and awareness, you're going to hear me keep saying those two words. I can't say it enough because we have to get that message out. You know, face it, in today's society we've grown. This campus enrollments have grown. People are coming from all over, from different cultures. And in some cultures, sad to say, this happens a lot. And it's not acceptable in any culture, in any race, any religion, any gender either. You know, we often look at sexual assault, and primarily it's female victims. But there are male victims out there, and they're the ones that won't report anything because it's the male, it's the machismo in us that we won't do that. I need them to report it as much. So I think we need to continue to get the message out. And our physical program, the RAD program I mentioned earlier, you know, that's for the physical, like a self-defense program. That's important. And when these young ladies go through the class, they kind of get to see like, oh, wow, I can do that. Or, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that. But it's the awareness program, such as maybe not consuming too much alcohol. You consume too much alcohol, you let your inhibitions down, you become a victim. Now, that doesn't make it your fault. But still, just be in control, be aware. So that's all I can encourage. And public safety, we will continue to do that. We will continue to educate the Rowan population, both male and female. The females to say, hey, be careful. The males to say, don't do it. I think sometimes you might have off-campus parties because Rowan police have no control over the off-campus parties, but we do work along with Glassboro police. So if we know that there's a major off-campus party ahead of time, we'll go to whoever's holding that party and say, hey, we know you're having a party. We're going to keep an eye on it. I think sometimes when you have those off-campus parties, young lady maybe had too much. He wants you to go in the room and lay down and sleep it off. I think something like that, you're opening yourself up. You could become a victim. Times of year, probably the end of the semesters where people might want to quote-unquote party a little bit more. But anytime during the semester or anytime during the year, I'm going to say sexual assault doesn't take a break. You know, if there's an opportunity there and people see that, I think there's some people in the world that can't control themselves and they'll take that opportunity. So
you said that at the end of the semester it's more likely because of partying. So would it be safe to assume that you feel that alcohol is usually involved in most of these sexual assaults?
I would say the percentage of sexual assaults that have occurred since I've been here probably have had some form of been alcohol related. You know, we are very grateful, and we do have an aggressive visibility program with our uniformed officers here to make sure, I'll say, that the bad people in the world stay away from our students. And we're aggressive that way. So I can't recall any incidents where we had that unknown perpetrator stalking on the campus. And the thing I fear the most is the date rape incidents. And all we can do is to continue to educate them, even during that time of the semester is winding down.
How many cases of rape, sexual assault, anything like that occurred within the past year?
At Rowan, I was talking to our investigative section, and we may have had 2 to 3 since I've been here that were reported. I felt that there was a few other ones that were not reported. And we've investigated that. They were investigated, and we brought the parties in. But probably around 2 or 3 since I've been here. And I look at that as 2 or 3 too many. You know, people might say, well, that's pretty good. Your percentage of population, you have 11,000 students, 2 people. 2 or 3 are too many. Sexual assault shouldn't happen at all.
Which segments of the college population are most vulnerable?
Obviously, females, I will say. I want to believe incoming freshmen, because they need to be educated. The females on campus here, maybe the sophomores and the juniors, they can educate the freshmen coming in to say, hey, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. And the Student Government Association here, a fabulous organization. You know, got a group of students that are working for other students. And part of that is to educate them on behaviors, on things on campus here that you need to stay away from or to be careful of. And sexual assault is one of them. You know, just an awareness. I mean, I'm not going to say that we have a sexual assault problem here on Rowan. I don't believe we do. But like I said, one is one too many.
Freshmen and just the student government.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. I would say the freshman population, females obviously, because they're the incoming population coming in. The juniors, the sophomores, female population here, they can educate the freshmen to let them be aware of certain things to stay away from, certain things to be aware of, techniques that maybe if you're caught in a situation that you use the buddy system, the buddy system being that 2 or 3 girls go out together, and if one of them are separated from the other 2 and they're talking to somebody that they don't want to talk to anymore, well, they send a little signal, the other 2 come over and say, it's time to leave. You know, so that's that education I was talking about. But anybody could be a victim. And like I said earlier, we only had maybe 2 or 3, but one is one too many.
How do you feel like you could better involve, or what you're doing exactly, involve these student organizations such as fraternities, sororities, student government, any sort of intramural activity? How do you feel like you could better involve each other, help these incoming freshmen? What are they doing, and how could they better that?
Well, we encourage everyone here on campus that safety is everyone's responsibility. Now, the Department of Public Safety, we are the main entity tasked to provide a safe environment to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of everyone on this campus, especially the students. But it is also everyone's responsibility for their safety. So what we'll do is we'll try to get them educated to say, hey, don't do this. Hey, why don't a group of you get together and talk about this topic? And even you might want to do a little role playing to try to put it really into context. But we try to get out there to all the groups. And the Greek groups, hey, we know that there's going to be certain times during the semester that they may want to throw a party, okay? And face it, this is college, okay? It's part of the experience, but make it a good experience. So we try to educate people on how you can have that good experience. So I think just making sure that the people work together, be partners. We're all partners.
So As far as talking to the fraternities, sororities, is there anything in place, any program or anything you're doing, or are you just going out and speaking to them personally and just trying to help them with that?
Well, we do have the program, like I mentioned earlier, the RAD program, which is available for people to sign up. We do have other programs that we're working with representatives from student life. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the Green Dot Initiative here on campus, which helps to reduce violence. And I think we are a participant of that committee that deals with educating. So I ensure that a member of public safety is basically part of every organization out there that is discussing how we can improve our safety. And one of the things that we do, and I've instituted since I've been here, is that a member of public safety, including myself occasionally when I can, will attend every SGA meeting throughout the semester. You know, when I first got here and I was talking to the president, I think her name was Liz, and I said, hey, I'd like to come to your meetings or have a member of public safety here so we can address any concerns. You know, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And Department of Public Safety, and I'll say this term here, I know some people kind of chuckle when I say it, I look at the students here as the future leaders of society. And it's our task and roles to make sure that we educate them and help with their personal and professional growth. Because someday, I'm hoping one of them stand up and be President of the United States, and I'll say, yeah, I remember that one. So.
That's good. What is the process that occurs after someone accuses someone of an attempted assault or rape?
If it's reported, to public safety, we'll conduct an investigation. We will take a police report. First and foremost, we will see if the assault actually occurred or if it was an attempted assault and the person needs medical treatment. Medical treatment is paramount. We'll coordinate that with the same nurse if an examination has to be done, because obviously during the course of an investigation there's the collection of evidence and there will be interviews. And we'll try to sensitize the interview as much as possible with the victim. That's the hardest thing when you want to discuss or have the victim discuss what occurred to them, because sometimes now they're reliving what happened and they're trying to avoid that. But we need that to be part of our investigation, so when we do talk to, I'll say, the perpetrator, then we'll have our facts before we take actions. We get our facts before we do acts, I'll say that. And then once we talk to the perpetrator, you know, whether we have the collection of physical evidence to corroborate the story, or sometimes they'll confess. And they'll say, yeah, I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Well, sorry, there is. You know, and then criminal charges will occur, and then it'll go through the criminal justice system. Most likely that student perpetrator, I'll talk to Vice President Jones, won't be a student here anymore. There's certain acts on this campus that are definite no-nos, and that's one of them.
What would you say to any males that maybe are not obviously thinking about doing this sort of activity, but to just kind of warn them the type of investigation and what you can actually prove that they did? Like just any sort of warning, like these are the things that we do, so you better not do it because we can prove it if it happens.
I'm going to be frank with you. Hey guys, don't do it. It'll ruin your life, because there's no such thing as, well, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Because if you commit a sexual assault, we have various ways to prove what occurred. Technology has increased over the years. The biggest piece of technology in the world today is what? DNA evidence. Okay? And if you have a sexual assault, 9 out of 10 times, there's going to be a release where they're going to have evidence, and we'll be able to match it to your DNA. And there is no saying it's not me. You know, try to educate the males and say, look, guys, hey, you can have a fun time. It's your responsibility, in my opinion, to say, if that young lady may have had too much to drink, find somebody to make sure she gets home safe. Take it upon us to protect our fellow students. Be the protector, not the attacker. So I try to get that message out to the guys. I'm not going to accuse every guy here of being a sexual predator. Of course not. But what I do say is, hey guys, this is what the statistics show. Sometimes men will take advantage of young ladies if they're both inebriated. Just don't do it. Be aware of it. Be aware of what can happen to you, because you only get one shot. If you're charged criminally and found guilty, it can ruin your life. It can ruin your life.
What do you feel like the adults involved?
Drunk hookup, okay. That would be that I had too much to drink, my female companion had too much to drink, and we decided to maybe go back to my place. And we go back to my place, and maybe we just say, you know what, we're tired. Kiss you goodnight or kiss you goodnight. No problem with that. Okay? In my opinion, as long as it's consensual. Not going to force a kiss on anybody. But when you got like a date rape situation where you actually go past that, believe me, that's not acceptable. Not acceptable. And facing alcohol has fueled a lot of crimes over the years, whether it's sexual assault or any other crimes. And you have to, what we do with public safety here is get that message out. Because a lot of people will think, it's not going to happen to me. Victims, it's not going to happen to me. But it can happen to anybody. So it's awareness. It's awareness. And we're going to do everything humanly possible to get that message out.
What would you say to the young men? Any tips or advice to avoid these sort of putting themselves in these situations where they can be accused or drunk and make some bad decisions?
Hey guys, if you're in a situation where you feel it's going to go further than what it really should, then walk away. Get out of it. Or get a hold of your buddy and leave that situation so you're not accused. Have there been some false accusations for sexual assault over time? Yeah, there have. Okay? But 9 out of 10 times when there's an accusation, it's going to be investigated fully, and it's going to come to the point where you're going to be able to validate what the accusation was. But if a guy's in a situation, walk away. It's not an embarrassment. It doesn't make you any less of a man. Walk away. Because you may be taking a step that could be possibly the end of whatever career you choose in life.
This kind of goes along with what I said before, but next question is, what would you say to young men on our campuses that can decrease the statistic that 1 in 4 female undergraduates is sexually assaulted?
Guys, be aware that this is what goes on. These are some statistics. I'm not saying that you're going to be a participant in making another statistic on this campus, but at least be aware of it, that it's out there. Don't ignore it. Become as fully educated as you possibly can on that topic to say, hey, I'm not going to be accused of something that I didn't do, or I'm not going to allow myself to be in a situation where maybe went further than I wanted it to. You know, there was a few high-profile sex assault cases throughout the country that people have seen. I'm not going to mention them. That a group of students, a group of male students, were accused. It's a tough thing to go through, to be accused and not do it, much less be accused and do it, because then you deserve everything that occurs from the fullest extent of the law. So we try to get that message out. Guys, just stay away. You know, but you have to be aware of it because they can't ignore it. You know, I don't want the guys to keep thinking that it's never going to happen to me or it doesn't happen anywhere. It happens. It happens. It's not right, but it happens, so we're not going to ignore it.
There's a statistic here that between 80 and 90% of assailants and victims know each other. Should we look at each date rape case differently than other sexual assaults?
Well, date rape, I would say that most likely on a campus, that's probably an accurate figure. I would even say higher, maybe 90%. The sexual assaults occur probably from someone they knew, okay? Which, I don't want to use the words encouraging, but it's nice that we just don't have the monsters in the world walking on our campus, just snatching a quintessential innocent victim, so to speak. But nonetheless, that 90% of being a date rape, we need to make sure that they understand that that's not acceptable. Hey, you know what? It was consensual. The word no is not inconsensual. And no means no. No matter, I'll say this term, how far it might be leading. You may think you're walking the path. There was and not to add humor to this topic, obviously, but on a Seinfeld episode, there was an episode where you got to first base, second base, third base, and home. And it was quite interesting when Elaine was saying, I'm not waving you home, Keith Hernandez. Well, basically, it's the same thing with what's going on with the male population here. This is not a game. And there is no, well, I got to second base, so I figure third base is the next step. No, it's not the next step. You stop at second, and you're out, so to speak. So we try to educate them. And I try to put it in a way that they can understand that. You know, just what I said right now. I'd say 90% of people know what I meant by that Seinfeld episode. So we try to relate to something so it sticks in their mind and say, you know what? That's what that guy was saying. That's important.
If you wanted to get a water break or anything,
Yeah,
you're good? Keep going? Okay. Event.
I think that over time, a lot of the victims, one of the first things out of their mouths, majority of the time, especially when it's a date rape, I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have put myself in that situation. And they blame themselves. And that's where this stigma comes from, in my opinion, where it says society looks at blame the victim. I am appalled by that. You can't blame a person for being a victim, because then there wouldn't be a victim. I would say there would be a participant, and a victim is a victim. And I think that's where it comes from through society. So we need to have that cultural change, that shift in that thinking to say, no, we don't blame the victim. Blame the perpetrator. And we have to make sure that the victims understand it's not their fault. Because that leads to the reason that some of them aren't reported. Oh my gosh, I can't tell my parents what happened. I should have never been there to begin with. It's all my fault. No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And I'm sure your parents will understand and support you, but that's up to you. But I'm here as far as the public safety standpoint to make sure this doesn't occur again, and that the person that did this to you is held accountable. And that's it. That's what we try to tell the victims. We encourage them. I even hate that word victim, because it has such a stigma that they did something wrong, and they didn't. They didn't.
Do you believe that law enforcement professionals have contributed to the blame the victim stereotype?
Not as much anymore. Not as much anymore that I could say law enforcement attributed to that stigma. I've been a law enforcement officer now for 32 years. 32 years ago, I would say that sexual assault maybe wasn't investigated like it is now. We've become aware over the years. We've become more sensitive to it. We've realized that this is a serious offense. And I think early on, maybe law enforcement might have said, hey, did this really happen? You know, you put yourself into that position. Now, you put yourself in that position, it's not your fault. It did happen. We're going after the person that did it. So I would say not as much anymore, because we've become more educated. Law enforcement officers are going to in-service trainings, specific trainings on sex assault, just like domestic violence. Over the years, domestic violence has been investigated like it should be. So I think that with sexual assault, we've come a long way. We've come a long way in law enforcement standpoint to say, you know what, this is wrong. This is wrong, and we're going to investigate it. And we're going to be compassionate to the victim. At one point, there was this old thought in law enforcement that, my gosh, you got a rape victim, so let's get a female detective. The rape victim may feel more comfortable talking to a female than a male. Well, if they would like to do that, then we would attempt to do that for them to make them more comfortable. But now, there are some tremendous male detectives I work with over the years that the females are comfortable with, because they know how to talk to the victim. They know how to make them feel comfortable and make them want to report and probably say one of the most heinous things that can happen to another human being and not be embarrassed by it.
What kind of things are you doing to these victims after the sexual assault occurs to help them feel more comfortable and feel safe again? Well,
obviously we would partner with the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office. They have a victim witness assistance program where they have advocates. They have people trained, and we will provide them these services to do follow-up, because it's just not, okay, here we go, report it, it's done, he's charged, have a nice day. You know, we'll make sure that they get some follow-up services to help them get through this tough time. And if I have to refer people, a lot of times we have a great counseling services division here. Dr. David Rubenstein is a tremendous partner for me, you know, and he has a multitude of resources that can help people after the fact to make sure that maybe they don't continue to be victimized every day of their lives for what they thought that maybe they attributed to, or just the fact of just having someone else talk. Counselors, very important follow-up counseling. And we offer these services. I can never force anybody to do it. But it's just not, we're done with you, have a nice day. No, we'll do follow-up. And I'll use every resource I can possibly use. If I have to go use a resource in Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office, or I use resources on this campus, or I find a great resource in another law enforcement agency, I'm going to utilize that to help that victim.
Speak out and seek help, but there still remains a silent majority that looks away, and they'll never intervene, and nor be reporters. What can we do to change this attitude without compromising privacy or safety?
I encourage people that if you need to talk, we can talk to get it out. At some point, we try to sometimes talk to people that, hey, are you willing to tell your story to others? Because people can learn from others. Now, there's various ways to do that. You can remain anonymous, but you could also say, I'm not going to be embarrassed by this. Many, many years ago, there was a horrendous crime in Central Park, and the victim was a victim of a violent sexual assault from a group of perpetrators. And for years, no one knew her identity. And a couple years ago, she came out. I said, that was me. And she became an advocate to say, you know what, I'm not embarrassed for what happened to me. And she helped so many other people. And I try to say to the victims, you may help someone, but I'm not going to force you if you're comfortable to do this. And I have seen some programs where victims will talk about their experience. And it's a horrendous experience, because when you ever talk about an incident like that, you're going to relive it. And we have to understand what they're going through again. But I try to at least open that up to people to say, hey, you could help others if you'd like. We'll support you. There's nothing wrong that you're doing, but we're not going to force you. How do you feel about that? And after a few years, some of the victims may say, you know what, I want to make sure that doesn't happen. Or some of the victims, I should have said something earlier. Maybe that wouldn't have happened. You know? So we try to encourage people, but I'm not going to ever force a victim to have to relive the experience. But, you know, it's kind of cathartic, too, when they get it out.
Now, if you could speak to any bystanders, say someone has a friend who was sexually assaulted, and they told their friend to confide in them, and they're really embarrassed, and they asked their friend not to mention anything. What can you say to those bystanders about being in that situation?
It's a tough one to break confidentiality. I do understand that. But you have to encourage the person who trusted your confidence to report a sexual assault. Confidentiality in the fact of, boy, I think that guy's cute, but I don't want him to know. Or confidentiality in being a victim of sexual assault, I would go back to the victim and say, look, you know, I know you trusted me with this, and I'm never going to break that trust, but really, you need to get this reported. You need to get medical treatment, because, and then you would say, hey, the person that did this to you is going to be free to do it to other people if we don't stop this individual. So I would encourage him to go back to the victim and talk, because obviously that trust issue is a big thing between friends. And short of, like for instance, if you said to me, hey, I just killed somebody, I'd have to think, well, don't throw that on me, you know? But a sexual assault is different. And really it's the point of just saying to somebody, hey, I really think that we need to get that, we need to get this out. Because that's how we deal with a lot of victims. We need to do this, we need to do that, so they're not feeling alone. So I would say that to the bystander. Try to gain their trust enough where you can get this reported, and follow through with them and be there by their side throughout the process, if they're that good of a friend.
Is there anything else you would like to say to our staff and students regarding this issue?
It's an issue. Sexual assault is not this little thing hidden away in a closet that doesn't happen. Okay? Nobody likes to talk about it. Nobody likes to report it. But it's an issue that we need to be aware of. We are all adults. And the only way we can combat this issue is to be aware and get it out in the open. Not the victim, so to speak, but the awareness. Especially, like we mentioned earlier, about the alcohol-related date rape incidents, you know, or whether it's people by themselves or leaving drinks alone in the bar. It's awareness, awareness, awareness. And, you know, if we can get that message out and continue to get that and it's everybody's responsibility, not just the students. I talk to professors here all the time because sometimes the professors have a rapport with the students to say, hey, if you know of a friend that's doing this, this is not acceptable. So it's all our responsibility to get this message out. So it's something that we need to, I would say to everyone, it's all our responsibility. It's just not public safety because I'm responsible for people's safety. And it's just not maybe the psychology department because they teach psychology. It's all our responsibility. And that goes back to what I said earlier. We're all partners. And we should all care about each other no matter what that topic is. And getting that out is very important. And I'm going to continue to encourage people to do that.
I don't have any other questions.